A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, a great adventure took place.
Talking Bird, a special edition.
Hello, and welcome to Talking Bird, the special edition, episode 38. I'm your host, Robert Zachary, along with my co-host, John Llewellyn. Hello, John.
Hello.
I'm sorry, I sound a little low energy and stuffed up. My allergies are in full bloom.
We're excited, we're high energy, we're ready to be back after a week off.
Yes.
For various reasons, but we're back. Hello.
Hello. I think we were able to...
high energy.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just like... Bop, 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 bop.
No, that's all right. I'll say I was the one yawning like every 2 minutes right before we started recording. So it's mostly an effort to like make sure that I don't yawn into the mic.
Yeah, I guess obviously it's just one of those things. In the life of a podcast, sometimes you are more high energy than others in life. I had a whole joke I was going to say at the beginning that I just didn't even think was funny by the time it came time to do it. We're a podcast always in constant motion. What does that even mean? Wow.
Always in motion is the podcast.
Wow. I would almost say we should start over on that. But no, we're going straight into it. We've got news, views, and a third thing that rhymes with that.
Hues.
Dues. Yeah, that's about it.
Muse.
Yeah, Jason.
Welcome to News, Views, and Muse, our View Askew-averse podcast.
There would have been one if podcasting had been around in the 90s. There would have been a View Askew podcast.
Are we sure there isn't one now anyway?
Well, I mean, I guess there technically are. But
there's a whole network, right? There's the Smodcast network.
Yeah, it's a pretty, no offense, guys, but that's pretty much a diminishing
well, I don't know. I'm not
media empire. Because
I'm not keeping up on my podcast networks.
I know somebody said something like to me like, oh, isn't that over at the Smod Castle? And I'm like, There's no Smod Castle anymore.
The Smod Castle.
I'm ashamed to know that I actually kind of know what happened with that. It's like they had
There's no shame.
Kevin Smith, he turned 40, he started smoking weed, he said podcasting was his future, and then he opened up the Smod Castle, then realized how much that costs. Then he partnered up with John Lovitz. And that went all right for a few years. Then John wanted more money. And then that happened. Then that kind of went south, and so now I guess they do something at a comedy club or something.
Yep. And but we're not here to.
Yeah, I'm not here to talk
discuss
about Kevin
the downfall
Smith.
of the Smod Castle. We're here to discuss the downfall of the Indiana Jones Empire. No, I don't know.
Oh, well, I mean, I guess that's a good
Indiana
enough teaser. I mean, to me, that the biggest Star Wars news of the week is not really Star Wars. It's the fact that Lucasfilm, as a Disney-owned entity, has announced that they are going to be doing a 5th installment of the Indiana Jones franchise, slated, was it August? August of 2019. Harrison Ford's on board. Steven Spielberg's on board. Kathy Kennedy, and I think Gary Marshall, her husband, is on board. Suspiciously or not suspiciously, who we are not hearing any sign of being on board is the big GL himself, George Lucas. I guess
big GL.
I know he's sitting it out.
He's a morning radio DJ now. Yeah. The big GL.
So tell me, hey, weather girl Susan. So you still dating that Spanish guy? Oh yeah, y grande. I don't know, but I worry. I mean, I almost should preface this that honestly, out of this whole announcement, the thing I'm worried about the most is I'm getting kind of worried about George Lucas. I'm worried about George Lucas.
Yeah,
because honestly, this whole idea that he is not going to be involved now, with the caveat that to keep my my feelings in check, what I did last night instead of my normal Star Wars prep where I watched something Star Wars related to kind of get myself in the mindset, I watched Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Maybe you kids out there might not know that was the 4th installment of the Indiana Jones franchise.
Yeah.
And
since I don't even know who mentions that movie anymore except people on the internet, I guess.
Yeah, it's I honestly went in with this thing like, oh, I'm gonna watch it and it'll be funny, and then I thought, something, dude, just go in and watch it like a movie. Don't go in with your preconceived notions, and let's give it another spin. I still had the problem. About halfway through, I lost complete interest in it, and I just realized I hadn't been watching the television in 15 minutes. It's it starts out kind of strong with some real problems at the beginning. Even to me, the lead line refrigerator isn't even like the biggest.
It keeps going.
Yeah, I mean, it keeps going. There's the gopher in the first scene. If you watch it, it's like. Yeah. That opening sequence out in the desert is pretty cool. There's some very classic Spielberg camera movements, and it does start out like except for that ridiculous thing with the Paramount Mountain and the gopher, it starts out very, very much like any Indiana Jones movie, except for this weird thing where I don't know, it's because it was all done on blue screen or whatever, that Harrison Ford is heavily dubbed.
Yeah.
And they don't even add any kind of reverb to kind of make it sound like, oh, he's outside, because voices sound different on out. No, he sounds like he's in a booth dubbing his things. And you're just like, wow, that's really sloppy. And it goes downhill from that. So I guess my point is that when we left, was that 2008? That Crystal Skull came
Probably,
out? Yeah. Well, it doesn't matter. But
07 or 08.
When we left Dr.
When we last left our hero.
Dr. Henry Jones Jr., I think things were pretty much resolved. I mean, him and Mary and Ravenwood got back together, and he has a son, full grown. He's got the perfect thing where it's he's got a son, but he's full grown, so he doesn't have to change any diapers. He's I don't know if he gets hired back by the college. I mean, there are some kind of weird prescient little things in the movie about, because there's this subplot that's quickly dropped about the idea of the kind of McCarthyism in the 50s, and Indiana Jones gets caught up in it because he's got some connection to Russians, and then he gets fired from his school basically because he's they're worried that he might become a campus radical. So, which is kind of funny, but overall, it was a disappointment of a film, and it makes me wonder if either they, I know that there's been all this talk, and in some ways, Shia LaBeouf had apologized for his participation in it, and he took blame for it.
Whatever, guy.
Yeah, exactly. And Spielberg even kind of took some of the blame for it. And then, I don't think, maybe Lucas took some of the blame and said, well, Steven's being nice, but everything you hated about it was my fault, which is the alien, the transdimensional alien thing, which even Spielberg admits in an interview I was reading in this. I don't know where I got it from, but you just put it in there, you'll find it yourself, where he had said George is my friend, and George is the storyteller in these movies, and I'm the director, so even though I wasn't happy with it, I decided to go with it, and I see that people weren't happy. So if this is true, it's kind of one of these situations where I feel bad for George, because really it's kind of everything that he was he created has now been taken kind of unceremoniously out of his hands, even though he was compensated handsomely for it.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's being, quote, done better than he ever did it. It's like,
right.
The first Star Wars movie had nothing to do with, has, by inflation, not taken into account, is like the highest grossing Star Wars movie. The first one's still a number one if you adjust it for inflation.
Mm-hmm.
And we all know that he had a bad taste in his mouth dealing with Disney over The Force Awakens. At least that's what he had said on Charlie Rose, kind of. And so obviously, since Disney is now controlling this property, that he either declined to participate or was not asked to participate.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like, I don't know. I guess I kind of feel bad for the guy, because he was the creative impulse behind these franchises, and they don't need him.
I think isn't he also running into more trouble with his museum?
Yeah.
So I think I would imagine he's also needing to spend a lot more time on that than he probably ever expected. Like I imagine he expected places to line up, and he was like, "Oh, of course we want the George Lucas Museum of the Moving Image or whatever." And now, in his mind, these politicians are mucking everything up, and so he has to like exert more energy and time, like messing with that than he thought he would. So I that may play into it as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've even heard so far that now Oakland has kind of thrown their hat in the ring, saying, "Hey, why don't you come to Oakland?" Which,
right.
I think makes more sense. I mean,
It's still a Bay Area.
He's a Bay Area guy, or I guess he's from Modesto, but I don't know is Modesto north or south of the Bay Area? I don't know. It's south. It's got to be, because I don't think I've ever driven through it. But California is kind of, Chicago is his life now, but his history is Central California and whatnot. But yeah, I guess, maybe I'm making mountains out of molehills. It's, I would say that my interest in this indie movie is probably pretty low.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
very low.
Thematically, what are they going to do with it? It's kind of, the first two movies were just kind of high adventure, fun. Maybe the second one, Temple of Doom, maybe got even a little too gory for some people. And they kind of did a correct and changed the the focus of the story by the time of Last Crusade, which it became almost the history of Indiana Jones. How did Indiana Jones become Indiana Jones?
Right.
Who are the
right? So they've already kind of covered that.
Yes, and so that was the the backstory and the importance, and then Crystal Skull, for all of its problems, covered the idea of aging, and there's Jim Broadbent has a line in the movie where he says, we've gotten to the point in life where life begins to take away more than it gives. So I mean, at the end, thematically, it's like, well, I think Indiana Jones, like the Locust or whatever, is they've kind of explored it all, and like, what else can we do in this fifth movie? The idea, like, if they're now doing themes as a way to kind of, so they can keep, a guy who's obviously in his 70s, who's supposed to be known for action, keeping the story interesting when he can't probably do as much action. Well, who knows? Harrison Ford's probably in the best shape he's been in 20 years. But, what are they going to have, the death? Is this what we're going at? Is this all of Harrison Ford is now going back to all of his old franchises and slowly killing off the characters?
It could be. I mean, I just assumed that this would be kind of a send-off for this character. In the run-up to The Force Awakens, there was some interview he did where he was talking about Han Solo, and he always expressed, consistently throughout the decades, he always expressed sort of more of a personal connection with Indiana Jones than with Han Solo, right? There's like, oh, I'm not Han Solo, I'm a different person, and I think he still keeps the distinction between the actor and the character with Indiana Jones, but I think he's more comfortable having people view him as Indiana Jones than as Han Solo for whatever reason, and so I think having the Force Awakens experience for him go reasonably well. I think he he probably wants to carry that over into a character that he cares a little more about. I mean, and it could also be that, you know, he likes those kinds of adventure movies. You know, he at least with science fiction. So we keep bringing this up on the show, or at least I do, that 3+ hour, you know, making a Blade Runner documentary. You know, he at one point he says something like, you know, he's made several movies that are science fiction, but he himself doesn't have any particular affinity for science fiction. But maybe he, you know, so maybe that's another reason why he likes Indiana Jones more. Maybe he enjoys those kind of like action adventure serial style. Maybe he likes working with Spielberg a lot. You know, it could be any number of things. But I think it probably does come down to, you know, he wants to give this character maybe a better send off than the Crystal Skull was for him.
Yeah, I mean, I could understand that. I mean, is that in some way of his, you know, the idea that now he's doing a Blade Runner sequel?
Yeah, is some kind of his way of, you know, there's always been that for years he was never particularly interested in even mentioning that movie. That to him was a, you know, he you know, there was a famous article. I mean, there was an article in like Details magazine or something when they used to do those oral history things about Blade Runner, and he said, or maybe it was a cut down of the book of the behind the scenes book. Anyway, he said, "Oh, I tangled with Ridley a lot on that. I'm not." Yeah,
I remember famously in the '90s when around the time the director's cut kind of came out, that they asked him about it on Larry King Live, and he didn't even remember like the last name of the character. I mean, he kind of he called him Rick Decker. He kept calling him Decker, like the Tim Heidecker character, and it was like, wow, he really is out of that realm. And maybe like you're saying, maybe this is his time to, because that was around the time when they started floating the thing that Rick Deckard was a replicant all along idea, which I pretty sure, if I remember, is not something maybe it's in the book as a, you know, the Philip K. Dickian kind of. I mean, I wouldn't put it past him to have those themes in the book, but I think mostly that was a kind of a post edit,
right?
Editing
well,
kind of thing.
I mean, it was sort of an accident of the blocking, I think, right? That
his eyes
in a couple scenes, Harrison Ford stepped into the wrong spot, and the light hit his eyes in a certain way that indicated that, you know, maybe he was a replicant. But, you know, I think just about everyone affiliated with that film, I think, either tries to like stoke the controversy, or that, you know, but in the spirit of saying like, well, you're supposed to be asking that question, you're not supposed to have like a definitive answer.
Right.
That's the point of it, and that's that sort of comes up in the book too, is that you never really get a definitive answer.
And I kind of, I mean, sorry, I mean, I always prefer that. What, you know, that was I think that's kind of the thing that made, you know, that movie fun. And, you know, after 20 some or 30 some odd years of revisiting it, that there's questions that could never be answered, and now they're going to want to answer it, and it's like, oh.
Yeah.
I mean, I could do a whole nother show about Ridley Scott, which I won't, about this idea that he now is revisiting.
Talking Rid.
Yeah, he's talking Rid. He's got a cigar in his mouth. And I went up there, I told him, I said, you got to make, you know, a 50-foot lens. You bring it up, you put the light up there, you get there, you roll action, and you stew it. And it's like, that's my Ridley Scott. With my Macanudo in my mouth. Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things where it kind of, you know, JJ did such a good job. I mean, you can always complain about it, but he did such a good job kind of tapping into some of this, you know, the nostalgia of childhood, maybe almost too much. It's interesting when these people revisit their franchises that, you know, I think I remember I had a friend that really loved Ira Levin's Rosemary's Baby. And so much so that he read the books. I think, did Ira Levin actually write the books too? He wrote the screenplay, or
because Rosemary's Baby was directed by
Polanski. That's
Polanski.
It. Okay, all right. So Ira Levin wrote the book, Polanski, but I think Ira Levin had something to do with the screenplay. So anyway, years later, I guess he did a sequel to it, where the Rosemary's Baby had grown up and stuff like that.
Yes. And Rosemary's adult son.
And it was kind of like The Omen, like those later Omen movies where it's like he becomes the Sam Neill did the third Omen movie where he'd become the Antichrist. And things went really bad and and it's going to be the end of the world. And then at the end of this sequel to Rosemary's Baby, it all turns out the entire thing was a dream. Like her even getting pregnant. And the last scene is him and, Cassavetes, whoever that was in the book, going to see this apartment building, and her, I think, going, oh, I don't like this apartment, let's go someplace else, or something like that. And it was like this, and it's that idea that, they keep going back and trying to put fresh paint on old paintings and like recontextualizing these characters. And it's such a dangerous thing especially when the person that created these things or shepherded them, in the case of Ridley Scott, you just end up with this kind of like, well, maybe their views have changed, and I don't know. It's just I don't really. Yeah. It's just this. Getting back to my point is like I'm interested a little bit in this, but generally I'm kind of not interested in the Indiana Jones thing, and only mildly interested in this Blade Runner 2, only because it's like I could kind of see, I'm kind of interested what they're going to try to do with it.
Yeah.
Indiana Jones has kind of a narrow scope. I don't think you could all of a sudden change the whole, well, who knows? I mean, maybe they'll get Frank Darabont back. He famously, that was one of the reasons Crystal Skull took so long, is that it actually had a long script gestation. I mean, M. Night Shyamalan came in and did a draft. Frank Darabont did a draft. Maybe David Peoples did a draft. It was like this kind of thing where
it's all there on the screen.
And it had, exactly. And it had to, and a lot of it turned out to the fact that George Lucas was always unhappy with the script.
Yeah.
And so it would be that kind. So now that he is no longer, a contributor or an impediment to the franchise, I assume it'll be made pretty quickly. I think Spielberg, one of his things really is even now, as he's approaching his 70s, he makes movies pretty quickly.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing too, that I guess if I'm interested in it at all, it's more like, all right, so why is Spielberg directing this? Right? 'Cause I mean, his most recent output, I mean, since, right, he did Crystal Skull, which is 2008. Prior to that, his like 5 films or 5 or 6 films, right? He did Saving Private Ryan in 98, and then over the next decade he basically finished AI. He took over from Kubrick and finished that movie. Then he did Minority Report, Catch Me If You Can, The Terminal, War of the Worlds, Munich, and then Crystal Skull. And then since Crystal Skull, he did the Tintin movie, War Horse, Lincoln, and now Bridge of Spies. So like he's not doing a ton of work over the last decade, and he certainly moved away, I think, pretty solidly from that kind of Indiana Jones type of movie, that kind of action adventure kind of movie.
Yeah.
Tintin is probably the closest he got to that, since again, over the last almost 20 years, he made Crystal Skull, he directed Crystal Skull and Tintin, and those were kind of the only real like action adventure-y kind of movies that he's done. So the fact that he's now involved in this, and then between now and 2019, he's doing the BFG.
What is that?
What's that?
What is that anyway? I see that list.
It's a adaptation of a Roald Dahl book.
Oh, okay.
Big Friendly Giant.
Oh. See, I thought it was I thought it was like a joke, because in the video game Doom, the gun is the big fucking gun.
Yeah.
I was like, really?
I think that itself is like a reference to
the Roald Dahl book. Okay.
Let's try to like flip it on its head or whatever.
I see.
So he's doing the BFG. He's doing Ready Player One, which is about.
Isn't it kind of like Pixels?
Maybe it's when the creator of a popular video game system dies, a virtual contest is created to compete for his billions. A contest users are willing to kill to win. So it's sort of like Willy Wonka, I guess.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. It's based on some
It wasn't in one of these novels.
It's based on a book. It's based on a novel, and the blurb from USA Today, the blurb in the front of the novel says Willy Wonka meets the Matrix. Isn't that a ringing endorsement? Anyway, and then he's doing something called It's What I Do, which is the story of a wartime photographer who was one of 4 journalists held captive by the Libyan army in 2011. That has Jennifer Lawrence in it. So yeah, so again, like not, and it's not to say that he has to like pick one kind of movie and make it, because I mean his whole career he's been sort of all over the place. But you know, I guess the question of like, okay, does he know how to make that kind of movie anymore, right? Is it how much time is he going to put into it? And as you say, because he likes to make these things quickly, and like how much muscle memory is there to make a really good, solid action adventure movie like the original Indiana Jones films?
Yeah, I mean, and it's like, do they do that kind of idea where we have to go back and embrace practical effects, and right. You know, that kind of like, I'm gonna do what JJ did, and I'm gonna go back to the well.
Yeah,
and it's like,
I would imagine there'd be some of that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I honestly, it's part of me is just like, these victory lap things are just kind of. And the more I think about it, the more I all of a sudden I start to, you know, question this new Star Wars trilogy. I think to myself like, okay, I was all excited coming out of The Force Awakens, but if, you know, I don't know, maybe I'm transmitting, because none of the people involved in the Indiana Jones things are going to. Well, that's not true. Kathleen Kennedy is going to be involved, and I know that she is. That's the thing. I think she downplays her creative involvement in these things. I think she's very engaged on the story construction level in the movies that she's in. You know, it's like
I think so too.
She's the secret sauce that because she's an executive, she doesn't necessarily come out and run out and say, "Oh, that was me. I thought that."
Yeah. Even then, you know, I don't know how much of involvement is active, and I don't know how much of it is just like putting the right set of people in the room together and have them come up with it, or, you know, just hearing the story pitch, you know, hearing John Knoll's story pitch for Rogue One and being like, yeah, okay, we'll do that. Or, you know, hearing someone else's pitching, you're like, you need to work on that more and come back to me, you know, without having really active involvement herself beyond that kind of gatekeeping aspect of it. I don't know. Speaking of victory laps.
Okay.
Episode 7 is starting its victory lap.
Exactly.
So I'm in Austin, Texas. We are in the middle of our South by Southwest season. And I think on Monday, a couple days ago, the feature-length behind-the-scenes documentary was shown at the film festival, and that's going to end up on the Blu-ray and the DVD, I think, or maybe just the Blu-ray, I'm not sure. So, you know, I think last episode we were talking about where's all these extras? Where's all this behind-the-scenes footage? Where, you know, we want to know more about how this movie was made. And we're starting to get some of that now. So there's a feature-length behind-the-scenes documentary. There's also going to be some kind of feature or featurette, I would guess, about the table read.
Yeah, I saw some preliminary stuff on iTunes. If you go to iTunes, when you pre-order or whatever, they have a mock-up of what the menus are going to look like and what the extras. It's not a terribly long featurette. It's like 7 minutes. So it's not like a full table read or something like that.
Yeah.
But, yeah, there's some pictures had come out. You know, everybody was like, "Oh, it's so amazing! Like, look at Daisy Ridley, look at John Boyega, look at the expressions on their face when they reveal this new Star Wars movie to them." But my feeling is that they were probably terrified that if they didn't do a good job, that they'd be getting a call from their agent on Monday saying, "Yeah, we're going with." I was just about ready to say Robbie Benson.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody's going to know who that is.
Yeah. I mean, the other part of it, like the flip side of that is sort of how I was thinking about it with, I guess I saw the intro or the preview for that table read thing, and, you know, J.J. Abrams talking about, you know, it was such a momentous day because we were getting together and creating this new generation of Star Wars and connecting it to the previous generations. And part of me is just like, yeah, it was a table read, right? Like, don't try to make this bigger than it was, because then I feel like they fall into the trap of all of the prequel stuff, and especially the Episode 1.
Oh yeah,
stuff. Where they did. They kind of did something. They had something similar with the a featurette about the table read or whatever, which. It basically ended up making George Lucas look worse than the rest of it, because like they got partway through and then there's a cut, and then he's like, "All right, well, I guess I have to go write the rest of it."
Oh boy!
And it's like, oh, okay, so that's how this table read went.
I mean, I think we've okay. The J.W. Rinsler book hasn't come out yet, but right. I think we're pretty aware that there had been some rewrites on this movie too. So.
Right. And yeah, so I guess I'm worried about them lionizing this one too much. And like, yeah, it was good and it was fun. But, and certainly Star Wars as a thing means a lot to people and to people of different generations, and there's that kind of cultural like coming together of different ages and everything, but it's a table read for a movie, right? It's not certainly it's a sign that like, yeah, they're on their way to making this movie, but it's not like the actual filming of the movie or the release of the movie, and so
yeah, I'm
just worried that they're trying to imbue absolutely everything related to Episode 7 with this kind of like momentous occasion, which because then that also would seem to diminish like what's happening with Episodes 8 and eventually Episode 9 and Rogue One and whatever else. It's okay. Well, if Episode 7 was such this big important thing, then what about the rest of it? Can those just like, do we not need to care about those as much? I don't.
Yeah, I know it's a. I think they're just trying. I think they're just really trying to. I mean, I'm getting into the realm of trying to think about people's motivations, but I know that there was a extra on the first Star Trek DVD that was a Blu-ray. At the time, it was like a Blu-ray only, the behind the scenes, and it was a lot of that kind of, torch passing and how much that they want to like respect the past but move into the future, and the kind of and a lot of it. Although the main thing I took away from it was a lot of this idea about J.J. Abrams' obsession with lens flare at the time, which I guess has not truly abated, because there's some rumors coming out that his wife was kind of like, dude,
you need to pull back on this.
Pull back on those. Which, totally true. It's like, it goes to show you that he is still a developing director when he's so hooked on these techniques. And that's maybe, I don't know, maybe they're trying to reorientate the idea of the Star Wars movies being kind of an entity on its own, away from Lucas, and that we're shepherding this thing without actually talking about the creator of it. It's like, we're protecting this and we're building on it.
Yeah.
And, or they're, maybe trying to, I don't know. I mean, since it was so well received, I can't imagine that they had a concern about people not accepting it or something like that. I mean, only the most hardcore fans that are like Lucas fans are really only kind of saying like, it misses all these George Lucas's touches, or it's too close to A New Hope, that's a valid criticism. But so you probably didn't get a chance to see this when you were at South by Southwest, I assume, this full-length documentary.
No, so the way the film festival works is, right, you can buy a badge, and apparently now there are like different levels of badges. There's a platinum badge and a gold badge or whatever. And so for the films, because I have gone to see films in previous years, if you don't have a badge, which would be me, you show up at the theater where they're showing the movie you want to see, and you stand in line. And so then when they open the doors for a particular showing, they basically there are a bunch of different lines. So there's a badge line, and I guess now there are like 2 or 3 different badge lines, and then the non-badge line. So they let in everyone who has badges first. And then if there are seats still left, they let in however many people from the non-badge line there are seats. And so that means, right, if it's something really that you think is going to be really popular, you also have to get there super early to get at the very front of the non-badge line. So for this, I just kind of went on the assumption that people with badges would fill up the theater, and that even if they didn't, that the non-badge line, like I would have had to line up at 6 a.m. to get at the front of it, and I didn't want to do that. So I just decided to not even worry about it, and because it's also, they were showing it at the Paramount Theater, which is right in the middle of downtown Austin, where everyone is for the festival, and so if it were at a theater further away from downtown, I might have tried it because I would have thought, well, maybe fewer people would wander down that way. But I think they held it at the Paramount for a reason, so that it was like right in the middle of downtown. And so I just assumed there was no way I was going to get in, and so I didn't bother trying.
Right, and we're like 2 weeks away from this thing coming out anyway, so what's the point?
And then I'm sure it's going to leak somewhere. Not that I,
it'll be on YouTube.
Not that I engage in that kind of...
You can still, for years, you could watch the beginning documentary on YouTube, and now it's actually on the official site. But for years, there's all kinds of those...
Right.
Yeah. People have
all
already...
those officially released featurettes and trailers and documentaries about at least the prequels, and even the ones about, the original trilogy. Those are mostly all up on YouTube at this point. Yeah.
So,
so there's those, but then also in the last couple of days, some of the visual stuff has come out too. So some of the ILM folks talking about three different scenes and what they did to build the scene digitally is online. They're basically ads for some HP computer. They're like, oh, with the equipment we have here, we can do this work. So, we can get down to the individual pixel level and do it that way, which, like, all right, fine. I'm not going to buy a computer just for that.
Exactly.
But the commercial is also probably not aimed at me. And so that was kind of neat. And then if you go to ilm.com/visual_development, whenever I have to read a website out loud, I keep thinking of when John Worster does that on The Best Show.
Yeah.
He's like, the word underscore.
Yeah, geocities.htm.filename.
Right.
Yeah.
The hyphen gooch. The word hyphen. It's like that kind of stuff. Anyway, so ilm.com/visual_development. There's a portfolio of images. It's mostly concept art and paintings from The Force Awakens, and actually the vast majority of it is in the Art of the Force Awakens book. So if you are unsure whether you want to purchase the book, you can go check some of these out, and if they pique your interest, I recommend the book. Or if you look at them and just go like, yeah, okay, that's fine, then obviously you don't have to buy the book. But there were a couple of things that I thought were interesting, but the main one is, as we transition to talking about Episode 8, because we have Episode 8 news, is there's a painting from some of the concept art for Episode 7. It's of a city street somewhere, and one of the websites who picked this up, their speculation was that it was the planet that eventually became Taco Dana, whatever it is, where Maz Kanata's castle is. And that image, that city street, it sort of looks like what we know they're building in Dubrovnik right now. We're putting these kind of ovular openings over the doors with lights around and so it looks like they're still using some of that artwork for Episode 8. And they're also apparently going back to the Ralph McQuarrie sketches and artwork again, also for Episode 8. Costumes and art too. Some of the so I won't get into too many spoilers, I guess, but there are some images out there now of them filming on Episode 8, including some kind of guards that look like old Ralph McQuarrie sketches of potentially what the Imperial Guards might look like. And then there's also an alleyway that they're decorating that has above the alleyway, it's not even an arch, it's like a curved ceiling or something like that, and on there is some kind of writing similar maybe to what was on the archway on Jakku that they used, that was originally from a Ralph McQuarrie painting. So in this alleyway that they're building for episode 8, there's some writing on this curved ceiling kind of thing, and that is also apparently taken from a Ralph McQuarrie painting or artwork of some kind. So, like, it's kind of neat that they're bringing that back in. We've talked about this before. I keep going back and forth as to, like, all right, yeah, I like the fact that they're linking to this, and clearly Ralph McQuarrie had some great ideas, and it makes it kind of feel like Star Wars a little more. And then in some ways I'm like, all right, you don't have to mine absolutely everything, right?
Yeah.
You want to, because then you want to leave some stuff out there that's like, oh, wow, I can't believe they didn't use this, or, oh, this is sort of an interesting painting and an interesting idea, and this looks a lot different from what Star Wars looked like. But if you keep coming back to that, then there's nothing left, you know?
Yeah, it's kind of like... it's hard to understand exactly what the motivation is why they're, you know, I guess McQuarrie was doing artwork until like 1982 and maybe even on, because I guess when the movies ended, I guess he was still doing some stuff, wasn't he? Or I don't know, because they always have these books now. It's like the art of Star Wars with Ralph McQuarrie, and then sometimes one of them, it's like kind of repurposed paintings from, you know, with Kevin J. Anderson, who wrote a bunch of the, you know, early EU books describing things. I don't know if he did those special for those books, or they were just repurposing stuff that he had, you know, done.
I think it was. So there were some books where it was like the art of Star Wars, where it'd be a lot of the Ralph McQuarrie original paintings, and then some stuff from the sketchbooks, maybe with then the scripts or the screenplays or whatever, you know, alongside them or something. And then eventually, after they did those, at least for the original trilogy, and then after they did those, then I think you're right, they put out that book, or maybe it was a series of books where it was the art of Star Wars, and it was Ralph McQuarrie paintings specifically of locations, so planets or something else. And then Kevin J. Anderson, I think, it was basically like he was a travel writer, and like, oh, here's what, if you wake up on Cloud City, this is what it's like, or whatever. Which I think was probably less effective than having the script there.
Yeah, I see those books at the used bookstore sometimes, but I always put them down because there's more text than paintings, because it's like, I just want the pictures. Yeah. There's some McQuarrie portfolio coming out in May, I think, but it's like $230. Yeah. I mean, it's that prestige format, which is great. I mean, I love that kind of stuff, but it's hard to really justify buying those, because it's like they're so well done that you almost feel like, oh man, I need to have like a special table when I bring these out, and you know, gloves, and so I don't smear the print ink or whatever, and like a little picker to flip the pages, and it's like, oh boy, can't we just have these all on, you know, I've seen over the years people have kind of put out PDFs of like as much McQuarrie stuff that you can, you know, for people to use as backgrounds on their computers and stuff like that. But yeah, it's like, you know, the books would be nice if there was commentary and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, as far as, you know, they have such a great stable of artists. Even, you know, I can't really think of their names, but Doug Chiang, of course, who has been with Lucasfilm for a long time. I mean, I don't know if I assume he's still involved in episode 8, but maybe not. Yeah. You know, I haven't really sat down and looked at who the crew is going to be on this. I don't really understand how their workflow. I know some of the guys that had worked on episode 7, when they asked them, are you going to be on episode 8? They go, there's no way I could do episode 8 because I was still working on episode 7. So it's like,
and I think some of them rolled over onto Rogue One.
Right.
But then that means it's hard for them to also work on episode 8 and Rogue One, or episode 8 and episode 9, or episode 8 and the Han Solo movie.
Right.
So I'm looking. So I'm looking here at the episode 8 page on IMDb. I don't see Doug Chiang's name on it. I see Michael Kaplan, who did the costume design for episode 7. The supervising art director is a guy named Todd Cherniavsky, who worked on... He was a set designer. He's been a set designer for a bunch of stuff, including Terminator Genesis, Jurassic World, all the way going back to Sphere and Armageddon. He's also the supervising art director on the BFG. Alice Through the Looking Glass, Tomorrowland, Oz the Great and Powerful, Avatar, Sucker Punch. So, kind of a mix there.
Yeah.
But I will say right now, I don't think I've seen any of these movies. So I don't know what the art design and the set design were like on them.
I've seen some of them. I don't really... They don't scream out to me as being particularly memorable movies, but that might not be that's probably not the art department's fault.
Possibly, right? Yeah, I mean, to some degree, the art department is there to help the director, and if the director wants something specific, they're going to give it to him.
Right.
I am, though, seeing something here. Maybe I'm way off on this. And I'll say Neil Scanlon is working on Creatures again for episode 8.
Okay.
Chris Corbold's working on episode 8 as well. But I think Doug Chang, he was one of the folks who got rolled over onto Rogue One.
Okay.
So I see here, it says that the music for episode 8 will be done by John Williams.
But you're seeing this on IMDb.
I'm seeing this on IMDb. Has that actually been announced?
No, the thing about IMDb is it's almost kind of has that Wikipedia type thing where people submit rumors as fact sometimes, and then it gets refuted. It's like they don't solidify that stuff. That's not the gold standard of information. I mean, I have a feeling that he will be back.
I do too. I've been getting a little nervous that they haven't announced it yet. But if they are still filming episode 8, then I guess it might be a little too early. But I've been like, all right, you can announce this anytime, guys. But I think there will be a lot of pressure to have John Williams doing the episode number films. So I'm assuming that it'll be him. Of course, that assumes a lot about his health and his schedule, I guess. But yeah, I assume he's going to be doing it too, but I would like them to announce that whenever they're ready, please.
Yeah. Is that like a source of anxiety for you a little bit? Well,
I mean, we've talked about this too. Like, I don't know. Like, the music of these films is something that I think is really important, and it's something I connect to a lot. And so I think even more so than like the plot and the dialogue and even maybe the look of the film, it's something that I am kind of getting nervous about with these newer movies, especially, as I've said, Rogue One, because John Williams isn't doing it, and so we have no idea what it's going to sound like. And then going forward from there, it's like, all right, eventually he's going to stop doing these. And, are we going to get sort of other directors? Are we going to get Alexander Desplat just trying to imitate John Williams? Or are we going to get something completely different, in which case, like, it's not gonna sound like a Star Wars movie, and what is that gonna mean? So yeah, I mean, that's the kind of stuff I get nervous about when they're making these new Star Wars movies, even more so than like, yeah, I don't like that director,
Right. Yeah, no, I think it's one of those things where it's like, well, there's all kinds of ways that John Williams can stay involved in these movies. I mean, we've already discussed that even with The Force Awakens, certain parts of it were conducted by different people. He is a guy, kind of a protege, and we assumed that maybe that the mantle was being passed to this guy, but maybe it's more like it's the idea that a guy maybe John Williams has 4 or 5 hours a day or something he's willing to work on these things, and having an assistant that kind of knows his whole work style, he'd actually be able to compose and say, well, I'm trying to do this, and it's in this key, and I want to bring it. I mean, composition to me is almost, it's almost like being able to kind of pull the curtain back on magic in some ways, because it's like, I understand that in the Western scale there's 12 notes and stuff like that, but I still don't understand how are they able to portray this with just we step down to this and we step up to this and we change a key here, and then when you hear that, this is how you feel. I mean, to me that's kind of magical. So yeah, I totally sympathize in the idea that you get the wrong guy, or girl or whatever, and it's just like if it's too different, it's like that kind of thing, or if it's too similar, they just you're just ripping off John Williams.
Right.
It's like, well, I don't really want, I don't want.
But then at the same time, right? It was political is the wrong word, but the George Lucas wanted these scores to sound a certain way in order to make a statement, right? And it was to sort of separate them from the soundtracks of the 70s, which either relied on popular music or, especially science fiction movies, it was heavily synthesized and you were using electronic music and everything. So on the one hand, you could say, okay, well, that style became so popular now. We have all of these scores that sound that adopt that approach, and so you could say that they're just following in the footsteps of John Williams, and so maybe it's time to take a break from that too. And okay, so what's the next place to push it? If everyone kind of followed you in doing it a certain way, then maybe it's time to change course again. But then on the other hand, it's like, having a Star Wars movie with like an all electronic, all synthesized score is going to sound bizarre. Or, having a Star Wars film that's, scored with just, a band, a rock band playing, the soundtrack, or a Star Wars movie that, or even if it's just like a chamber orchestra, or there's, it's a piano driven thing, right? We don't know what that's going to sound like. And the whole thing could fall apart.
You're
like,
who knows? I don't know if you're referencing specific movies, but you're like some of my favorite and some of my least favorite movie scores of all time. It's like, I'm thinking it's like, I love Queen's score for Flash Gordon, but I would never want that in a Star Wars movie. Right. And then when I think about pianos, I think about the horrible score for The Firm by Dave Grusin. Oh God! Every time I watch that movie, it's like, oh, what the heck's wrong with this thing? He does it with it's basically one piano. It's treated at some points and just played at others, and it's just like, ugh. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting because it's like I think that the the one thing that it could react that a John Williams score in 2016 or 17 really could react against is this idea of this heavily what do they call it now that these orchestras are samples in a keyboard kind of idea. Well, I get like the feeling like most of the time when I go to the movie, if I see an Avengers movie or a Marvel movie, it's like they use kind of this. They use I think they use synthesizers to do these scores now, and they don't. I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of any of the Marvel movies scores. I think they're terrible. Like the way they use music is kind of obnoxious in the especially in like the Iron Man movies when they keep throwing out AC/DC songs in the middle of the score, and you're like, oh jeez, this isn't going to sound dated in 10 years or something like that. But yeah, it's like I said, this is a lot of speculation on our part. The only other thing I've heard about episode 8, which since you were kind of saying we should avoid spoilers, the only thing I've heard, and I don't think this is a spoiler, is that somebody, and I don't know if it was Rian Johnson or somebody in the production, said that basically the one word they used to describe the script was weird.
Yeah. Well, and God, what's his name? Who co-wrote the script for Lawrence Kasdan, right? He was saying that, right, even before episode 7 was coming out, when Rian Johnson was working on the script, he was like, oh, Ryan's writing some weird thing, that it's really kind of out there or whatever, which could be interesting. The photos of the set in Croatia don't really lead me to that conclusion, but we'll see where it goes. But it seems like at least there'll be some. I mean, certainly, the kind of location that they're setting up in Croatia doesn't really look like one that they've quite done before. I mean, maybe you could say maybe when they filmed in Italy for episode 2. But okay. So I'll one minor spoiler here. They're filming on a boat in the Croatia, and that's new. That's a new idea that they haven't really done before. And so that's kind of interesting that they're going to have a scene on, a yacht somewhere.
Yeah. I mean, and
but that's not like, wow, he's doing some weird stuff there, man. So I guess we'll find out what's coming up.
Yeah. I honestly think that what we're going to find is that there's going to be some structural things in this movie that's going to throw us for a loop. Like it's this rumor that, I totally fell for this rumor. I was looking at Twitter, just kind of seeing, any breaking news before we go on the air, and somebody had put something up like, breaking news, episode 8 will be called The Force Awakens Part 2, right, and it will take place 1 month afterwards. And I'm like, what? And then I realized it's one of these fake right. news things, right. which I of all people should be able to spot that stuff a mile away. But yeah, it's kind of, I think there's, in their own teaser, they're showing like, they are going to deal with this Luke, Rey thing kind of head on. And then, and I don't know if there's, I don't even know if this is considered a spoiler, but, jump ahead 15 seconds. There's some rumor that this Dubrovnik thing has something to do with a funeral for somebody, for a character. I see. And that's that they're kind of like, there's some rumors that so-and-so is going to be showing up for this, and the T. I didn't look at the TMZ things, which I assume it's the same one as all the other sites. The kind of the costuming and the mask. I mean, honestly, some of it's kind of evocative of even episode 3 of some of the opera scenes of they're all kind of wearing the same thing, and then they're wearing like a Halloween mask. But, right. Who knows? Post-production, filters, things, who knows? It might look completely different.
Yeah. And Billie Lourd will also apparently have a larger role in episode 8, according to the actress, which I think she had one line in episode 7.
Yeah, I mean...
So I was like, I 2 lines would make her a bigger role.
I guess part of me is like, don't complain, that's one more line than I had.
But No, I don't mean that as like, you should be lucky you got one line. I mean it is like, No, I mean,
there
2 lines would just
actually, that's kind of what I am saying to Billie Lourd. It's like, just be happy you're in the thing. Because the checks are going to clear. Yeah. I mean,
I don't know. I haven't seen Scream, so I don't know what she's like on that show.
This isn't like getting... is Star Wars supposed to be like getting into an Ivy League school? It's like, they have to take me. I'm a legacy. That kind of...
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know much about her. I haven't watched Scream Queens. I've only seen her in interviews, kind of doing kind of her Carrie Fisher impersonation of being kind of all over it and being like, whatever. Yeah. That kind of thing. And that's fine. I mean, she's a young actor, and it's like she grew up in that world, kind of, and so maybe she isn't impressed. Where should we move to? Should we move to this Rogue One stuff?
Yeah. So other movies in production now include Rogue One,
which we've heard almost nothing about.
And even to the point where we thought we had teasers and I guess not trailers, but teasers for the film a couple of weeks ago. And they're fake. It was basically just like, since we haven't heard anything, people just kind of made them up. Like, I want something to look at about Rogue One.
Yeah, I mean, it was obvious.
We haven't heard anything about this movie, so anything I make up will get a lot of hits.
It was a pretty clever fake, but I mean, even I was able to kind of pick up on it. I mean, like it's a lot of atmosphere. It's like a shot of a tree line of tree branches, which I could never figure out what movie I had seen that before in, but I had seen it in a movie. So I knew immediately when I saw that shot, it was like, I saw that in a movie before. And then there's a shot of AT-ATs walking kind of in shadow, I guess.
Right. But and there's a voiceover of some line from the original trilogy, and of course the sound of the TIE fighter is overhead. So it's sort of meant to be evocative, and so it's plausible that you go like, okay, I could see them promoting Rogue One that way.
Yeah, I mean that's the way they promoted it at Celebration,
right?
That the thing, but they were all static shots, and I think someone basically used that same template to create their own kind of thing. It just felt like it at this stage in the game, it actually gave out so little. of the of anything that it just didn't seem like it would have been an effective ad for a movie. You know, if they were just kind of wanting, if they had an elongated timeline where like this movie wasn't coming out for like another 2 years, I could understand them just, you know, doing a very, very light teaser image, kind of setting the scene or whatever. I mean, the problem with this movie is that I think that there's going to be a lot of confusion with the average viewer. I mean, we did a very unscientific poll on our Twitter page, which only had 7 votes about, you know, the people's excitement level. And generally, you know, I said basically, you know, either like I'm super excited, I'm going to wait and see, or I don't care or something like that. And there was... Generally, we were getting... I got 1 vote for super excited, and generally everything kind of hovered in the, like, I'm going to take a wait-and-see approach. And then there was a couple that were just like, what is this? I don't understand.
Right.
And I think it's going to be an interesting kind of a problem that they're going to have promoting a movie after the huge success of another movie that's not a direct sequel, but spiritually is in a sequel, in the idea that it's Disney's new take on Star Wars. So it's like we're changing it up. So I mean, there's going to be a lot of people going like, well, no, what's going? You know, a lot of like people like my cousins and stuff like, what's going on with this movie? Is this the sequel? Are we going to find out? Are we going to see Luke in this one? And I'm going to have to say, no, you're going. Now we're going to go back 40 years or 35 years,
and there are no Jedi in it whatsoever.
And it's probably going to be a hard-edge PG-13 movie, more so than even the Force Awakens. So you're probably not, you know, I don't know. Maybe I haven't heard anything about, you know, they're saying Saving Private Ryan. They're saying, you know, Zero Dark 30, but it's
Black Hawk Down, or maybe,
you know, that's PG-13 at best. You know,
right?
People getting, you know, Star Wars very. Controversially, when they started reissuing them over the years with digital fixes, had actually sanitized, even, you know, beyond the Han shoots first, they sanitized in episode 4 some of the direct blaster hits or like little smoke squibs and things like that in the prison escape stuff that Lucas had already kind of said, it's a little too much.
Right.
So if they kind of push back in that direction, it'll be interesting. I mean, you know, even in episode 7, you know, the blood on Finn's helmet, it's like there's very, you know, Star Wars is generally kind of bloodless. I mean, Leia, you know,
it's all about how the lightsaber or the blaster or whatever, they cauterize the wound.
That idea, you know, there's no big squirt of blood out when he loses his hand or whatever. But actually, now if I'm saying episode 1, you know, there's the spray, which is pretty gory, pretty gross. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm just really curious about, are they literally waiting till after the Force Awakens comes out on video? I mean, I theorized like, there's gonna, you know, with with Blu-ray technology, one of the things that Blu-rays can do is like if your player is hooked up to the internet, it can actually fetch and download some additional thing. That's why now when you go and sometimes when you watch a movie, that, you know, you have a 7-year-old movie and you put that thing in your Blu-ray player, all of a sudden all the trailers are from this year. So they can actually do that. So it'll be interesting. It would be kind of nice if they did like a little, like maybe for everybody that buys The Force Awakens on disc, they got a fresh, proper Rogue One teaser, because I think that would be your best, you know, best time to educate people about, you know, what's this difference, because a lot of people I think a lot of people are going to buy this movie that aren't necessarily people that buy a lot of movies. I think it's going to be a thing, and that's a great time to educate them. And I don't think they can really do a thing. They can't do it like they did with The Force Awakens, where it's like, we're doing this with such love and all this thing, and we're bringing back our old friends. It's like, no, none of your friends are going to be in there, and if they are, they're not going to necessarily be the people that you knew playing it, or, you know, maybe they don't want to advertise. I mean, I guess this falls into spoiler territory again. This thing I keep hearing about, this Tarkin thing, this idea of this fully realized Peter Cushing creation, and
right, hologram or whatever.
Yeah, it's kind of like, at first I thought, well, they said, oh, they're going to have like Vader and Cushing or whatever, and I'm like, okay, they're going to use maybe some alternate angles, and they'll bring in the guy from Rebels or whatever, or Clone Wars, I forget, to do the voice, and then I think it's Steven Stanton. I think it's the same guy that did.
He's been doing Tarkin's voice on Rebels, and I guess he did it on Clone Wars, which I don't think he did a great job on.
Really,
Rebels,
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm he's doing the cartoon version. I mean, supposedly he did a spot on. He was the voice of Roger Ebert in The Life Himself. I actually haven't seen that movie yet, but they say it's it's spot on, it's eerie, that kind of thing. So
yeah.
I mean, maybe he's got, I know there's kind of a more broad way of doing voices, and like if you're doing like a Michael Caine as a, as a joke, versus if someone literally is doing dialogue replacement for Michael Caine, who's like, I'm in the Bahamas, I ain't coming back to Dubnet. Right. They come back and they actually have a guy that can really get in there and do like, could say anything in that, or they practice it like almost like a musical instrument. Like, I have to play this note for note. So, I mean, it'll be interesting. It makes me wonder. It's like, there's been talk of, Christopher McQuarrie had come back in and done rewrites for it. Where is the focus of this kind of, it's just, I know that they saw a little bit at this Disney stockholders meeting. It's kind of, makes me wonder. It's like, are they really that comfortable, like, going into this with this little of fan engagement?
Mm-hmm. Well, and right, so we're getting a Force Friday in September again, right? So, right. But that's only 3 months before the film is released, and so that doesn't seem like a lot of time. So if they're going to start promoting it, I would imagine it would be sometime before that. And so I imagine once we get to like May, maybe even April, but probably May, there will be rumors popping up about what blockbusters is going to have a one trailer in front of it. So maybe that's all they're waiting for. Maybe they're just waiting for the summer to put it out in theaters when they're actually going to get a lot more eyes on it. And then of course I imagine they're going to ramp up, just as they did for Episode 7. They're going to have Good Morning America and ABC involved in it, and the Disney Channel and all this other, all the other branches of the Disney ABC media
empire
conglomerate. Yeah.
So what do you know much about this? I didn't really read the whole article about this Alan Tudyk's character. Did you? Yeah,
it was suggested just that he's playing some old battle droid, not a battle droid as in the like Roger, but one of the droids, some Clone Wars era droid that got repurposed, or fixed up, I think. I think that's all. Like, it was just, we think this might be what it is, but I don't think it was ever even definitively stated.
Stealing something from the Judge Dredd, the first Judge Dredd movie playbook. They're going to get Armand Desante to show up. Hey, I'm going to get you.
And Aftermath, the character who then eventually becomes Greg Grunberg, right? He has an old battle droid from the Clone Wars that he fixed up named Mr. Bones.
Mr. Bones.
So maybe that's where they got the idea, or they wanted Alan Tudyk to do something motion capture-y, but they didn't want it. But I guess they didn't want it to be an alien, or maybe it is an alien, and this droid thing is some other character that they heard about and put 2 and 2 together and added it up to something wrong.
I was hoping it was going to be like one of those IG-88 type droids, but
I think they said it's like a cross between IG-88 and then one of the big droids from Episode 3 or something, or even the Clone Wars cartoon.
You mean those ones that Grievous had that were like the Magna Guards or whatever?
Maybe, or it's either those or the ones that like they're just big and they have lasers on one of their arms, so they just
I forget
the whole time.
Super battle droids, as
yeah.
That could be all right. I mean, I'm not against the idea that. I like the idea that they don't want to throw everything out about the prequels. I mean, I understand that the story that they don't want to go in that political direction and all have all that kind of stuff, but all the art design, is pretty solid. And the Roger droids got really annoying after a while, but the other ones that don't talk as much, maybe of course this one will probably talk because he's known for being kind of a. Mm-hmm. I'm actually kind of excited about that. It's kind of like I make that. I say, we should be an IG-88 droid. But if you actually like stand there and look at that design of that thing, it's like, how would something like that even move and not look ridiculous?
Yeah.
I mean, I remember fighting an IG-88 in I think it was it Shadows of the Empire or something, and it looked ridiculous, like trying to fight.
Yeah, well, it's their feet more than anything else, right? Because in the original. In Empire Strikes Back, right? You saw it from like the waist up or maybe the knees up, and it wasn't built to move around.
Yeah, he doesn't have knees. He just kind of has like these stick legs.
Right, and so then when you have to put that in motion in a video game or in a movie, right? If you take that design and have to move around, it can look awkward. So they may have started with that idea, and then like, all right, well then, how do we change this design to make it a little more functional and a little more believable that it can move around and do things. But I think, an IG-88 style droid would be kind of cool that has been, and to be clear, right, this would be a droid that had been repurposed or whatever and is fighting on the side of the rebels, I think.
Yeah.
Is that what the thing said? Yeah. Yeah. So there's the young Han Solo movie, we'll just keep.
Yeah, we got
it. There's a short list of actors now pared down from the one we heard about months ago. So now it's apparently down to Taron Egerton, who was in the Kingsman movies, and he's in Eddie the Eagle, which is coming out soon. Alden Ehrenreich, who was in Hail Caesar, and Jack Rayner, who everyone says like, his most notable role is Transformers: Age of Extinction. But he's like the fifth billed actor in that, so I don't even know like how well people know him from that movie.
Yeah, he doesn't. I mean, that movie does not. That's a weird movie.
Yeah, and the articles that mention that have talked about this, they say, there may be some others too. But if these are the names that are being put out there, I think it's probably going to, unless all three of them turn it down or someone else like really blows them out of the water, or they decide that they want to go with a young, fresh face, then it's probably going to be one of these three. And I've only, of the movies that these three actors have done, I think I've only seen Hail Caesar. And I thought Alden Ehrenreich was good in it. He was really good. He played the kind of like cowboy actor who then the studio head wanted to put in these like high class, upscale, drawing room drama films, and he's like the actor's really good. He's really funny in the movie. He comes across as very likable and kind of the off screen stuff, and it's like he's playing himself in life. But he doesn't really look that much or at all like a young Harrison Ford, and so either people are going to have to just not care about that, and maybe fewer people actually care about that than I think, or they're going to have to do stuff similar to what they did with Ewan McGregor to like it makeup wise to sort of make him, sculpt his face a little bit through makeup or whatever else to make it look a little more Alec Guinness-y. But, and the other two actors, I don't think look that much like Harrison Ford either. So the same thing would apply, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're kind of running into that problem. I'm like looking at this Ehrenreich guy, and then I'm kind of doing a comparison on my tabs of my computer between what the way Harrison Ford looked around when he did Francis Ford Coppola's The Conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, it's kind of in the cheeks and in the facial distribution, maybe. I mean, you can do something with the hair. I don't know if they're going to go for more of they're going to kind of do like what they did with Oscar Isaac and give him more of a New Hope hairstyle.
Mm-hmm.
Or they're going to kind of go like, oh, we can kind of play with it because this isn't Star Wars and it's 10 years or something beforehand.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess a lot of it in my mind was damage control personally about the people I really, really didn't want to play this role. I mean, I guess that's my thing. It's like, I am not, and I'm not, this is, well, at least with this guy, Miles Teller, I don't have anything against him personally or anything. I've actually only ever seen him in those movies he did with the Shailene Woodley movies, the Insurgents or whatever they call them. They're very forgettable movies, but they run cable. And it's just something about, I do not like his acting style or something like that, or he doesn't look even remotely. They'd have to put, eyebrows on him or something. It would just be weird. And then like the other one that had heard rumored way like a year and a half ago was Aaron Paul, who I'm not a big fan of at all. I mean, I do not, everybody talks about, oh, he's so great on Breaking Bad, but he literally, that's the only kind of role he could play, that, half screaming, crying guy. I have not seen a lot. I've seen him in Ridley Scott's Gods and Kings Exodus, and he's just terrible in it, even though his role got hatcheted down to nothing. So I'm kind of glad that they're picking these guys that I don't know who they are. I mean, I did see Kingsman. Wasn't really impressed with Kingsman. But I mean, he was playing kind of a what do they call him, a chav or whatever, the typical young English guy, Londoner, getting into trouble. I don't know much about his. I mean, he's got that other movie coming out with oh gosh, I don't know who it's. What's that? What's the one the other movie he's got coming out called
Eddie the Eagle?
Eddie the Eagle. Yeah, somebody else is in that.
Is Michael Caine in that? No, who is it?
No, gosh, I have to look it up, but it doesn't really matter.
Eddie the Eagle.
Eddie the Eagle, yeah. Oh, Hugh Jackman, that's it.
Oh, that's who it is, yeah.
Yeah, and I saw a thing for that, but I didn't quite understand what the point of it was. Yeah. And it's,
It's about a guy who's not very athletic, but he decides he wants to be a ski jumper.
Oh, it's a true story.
And then he ends up going to the 1988 Winter Olympics. The blurb is that he the notoriously tenacious British underdog ski jumper who charmed the world at the 1988 Winter Olympics. So long story short, he wasn't very good. He didn't win anything. But it's meant to be, I guess, a heartwarming tale of, like, if you set your mind to it, you can do anything you want.
Sounds like a whitewash of Cool Runnings, if you ask me.
A little bit. Or any of those running movies, those Prefontaine movies or whatever.
Yeah.
Except Prefontaine actually was good.
Is that the one with Jared Leto?
There were like two that were released at the exact same time.
Exactly, and I can never...
There was Prefontaine, and then there was something else.
Postfontaine.
Yeah.
Nice.
I will always laugh at that joke.
It's just his casket.
Yeah. So anyway, so Taron Egerton is playing Eddie Edwards. Edward Edwards, the eagle. The titular eagle. Who is not an eagle, but a person, and not very good at what he likes doing. The end.
Yeah, it's the Han Solo movie. It's like I worry about that only in the sense that the perception of public's perception of it is that they're like, I've already heard like from different lay people that aren't really particularly Star Wars people, and even people that are, they follow this stuff, that they're like, why are they doing this movie now? He's they killed Han off. Why do they need to, like, that's his story? Yeah. And it's like I kind of feel, because like, what if they got a really great idea? I mean, I'm kind of like, going back a little bit to what I'm talking about the Lucas, it's like, Lucas is out of the picture. It's like now, everything that they do now is post Lucas. It's not going to be, it's probably not going to feel like the way that Star Wars feels. But as long as they keep those core, the numbered movies, they kind of stick to the script, I think they have some room to play. I mean, I think that I don't know what the idea of these budgets are doing, if they're actually budgeting these movies at the same level that they're, I mean, I think I brought this up before. It's just I think we should, cut them some slack, It's like, yeah, as long as, well, I guess maybe I'm saying that because I don't have to worry about Aaron Paul showing up as Han Solo. If it was or
Dave Franco.
Yeah, if Dave Franco was showing up or something, I'd probably be pissing and moaning about it all day. Like, how dare they fuck this up?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
that's the latest on the young Han Solo movie. And Han Solo is getting his own comic book now. His own comic miniseries, which will be inspired by Cannonball Run.
Yeah, what's up with that?
I guess.
It's like,
well,
is that
that's
really...
right. So you need a short, contained storyline for Han Solo. So he's participating in some famous race that Leia wants to send him on some kind of spy mission, and while he's on that mission, he's also going to do a side track to fly in this race, and that's that's the plot. And it was inspired by Cannonball Run. So it's like, yeah, okay. But I think you heard about it before I did, and you posted something on Twitter about it, and about how it was going to be about some famous race in the galaxy, and I was like, it's not the Boonta Eve Classic, is it?
Yeah.
Right? Because like we kind of had this idea, and maybe if they had made it shorter, it would have been a little better. But the pod race at episode 1 was fine, but it went on way too long. But like, I don't know how you convey that same action and excitement in a comic book.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. When I was a kid, I read a book by a guy named Lester Del Rey, who was like one of the old school sci-fi writers, and it was like something like Space Jockeys, and it was about a race around the solar system. And basically, for that book, the only really the actual racing part, it's so hard to imbue immediacy in a book about a race. So a lot of it was him, like, things like, oh, I had to actually climb out on the outside of my ship at full speed and screw a plate into it so my ship wouldn't blow apart, that kind of stuff. So,
right.
Maybe it's, if I guess a comic book series, that's probably the best place to explore these. I mean, the old Marvel comics would do a thing where it was like, oh, it's the Magnificent Seven this week. Oh, it's, they did a John Carter Mars riff. So I guess I can't really ding them for kind of trying to, to dip back into these kind of, archetypes. Although it would be kind of funny to have a Cannonball Run, it's a mad, mad, mad world kind of Han Solo movie.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess the one thing we forgot about the Han Solo movie is that Bob Iger said Chewbacca's origin story is going to be in it too.
Yeah, okay. Okay, that's fine.
You don't care?
Not really.
Oh.
I mean, I like Chewbacca. I just kind of assumed Chewbacca would be in the young Han Solo movie.
Yeah.
But for them to be like, oh, don't worry, everyone, his origin story is going to be there. It's like, yeah, okay, fine. I'm less concerned about that, and I'm more concerned about what the rest of it's going to be. That part's fine. That part doesn't take anything for them to really get right. That's sort of like a gimme to put that in there.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting.
I'd rather see what the rest of it is like.
It'll be interesting if they decide to go off of the common stuff. There was the story that kind of be told, but it was not in any of the book forms, that they would just say, oh, Chewbacca he saved Chewbacca's life. Right. Or something like that. And then I think the A.C. Crispin trilogy kind of re-emphasized that. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, since all that stuff has been kind of tossed to the wind, I don't know. Maybe that's. I mean,
I could imagine them keeping the idea that Chewbacca was a slave who Han Solo, freed during. But the question becomes then, okay, was it during his time in the Imperial Academy? Was it something else?
Is that even something that's going to be considered a thing that they're going to explore now? Is that that he was going to have been kind of like a proto Finn, that was he conditioned as a child? Was he what do they call it? Oh, great! Now I can't remember the word. When they never mind. You could send it in.
Brainwashed?
No, what they used to do when they would just compel people to join the British Navy. Not Shanghai.
Conscripted?
Conscripted. Thank you. God. My old craggy brain.
Yeah.
So I guess that's probably where we should be wrapping up this week.
Yeah. The only other thing I wanted to mention was that the Kanan comic miniseries wrapped up today. I didn't have any real deep thoughts on it. I just wanted to note that it's over. Yeah. Overall, I thought it was fine. I personally didn't feel like it added a whole lot to like the Rebels story. It seemed like it was mostly there for like people who really liked the Clone Wars, and the prequel era of Star Wars. So, they got something, before to tie them over before this Obi-Wan and Anakin comic, I guess. But, the artwork I thought was pretty good. I thought it was fine. I liked it better than the Leia miniseries probably, but I don't know that I liked it better than some of the others. So the canon comic is now fini.
So did you watch that Trials of Tatooine teaser? I mean, that's
yeah, I did.
That's the big thing now, I guess.
It was an augmented reality experiment.
Now, is that supposed to be for the VR headsets that everybody's talking about now?
Yeah, it's some HTC thing where you get a headset and then you are helping. I don't even know if you're supposed to be Luke Skywalker. I think you're supposed to be someone else who like goes to Tatooine, but you're with Han Solo and R2-D2. But I don't think you're supposed to be Corran Horn either.
No, I don't think that will be happening.
So you're there. Millennium Falcon gets attacked by Imperials. R2 gives you a lightsaber, and you kind of go to town with your lightsaber. But I thought it was really smart of them to call it an experiment and not like a game.
Yeah.
Because I was talking about this with a friend of mine who was in town for the interactive South by Southwest Interactive, which is like the tech industry portion of it. And we were talking about how, we started off talking about Google Glass and how they pulled it back and they're still working on it. And we were comparing that to, movies. And I was alluding to some of these Star Wars movies, but even if you think of like all the way motion capture technology has advanced, where, the Polar Express, everyone kept talking about the dead eyes of the character and how it didn't really work well, but they kept working on it and working on it and working on it, and eventually it's where it is today. And you go like, okay, that's not bad. When you see Maz Kanata or if you see those Planet of the Apes movie, you go like, all right, that looks okay. Whereas Google Glass, it was basically an experiment that they put out there, but it didn't get perceived as an experiment, and so everyone was like, well, this sucks,
right?
And it got a lot of bad press, and they had to pull it back. And so I think for ILM to label this explicitly as an experiment, that I think that's smart, because then reactions to it will be softer. They'll be like, okay, there's an experiment, even though this doesn't look great, or this is boring or whatever. I'm going to treat it differently than I would if they told me like, oh, we're releasing this augmented reality video game.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, the graphics aren't very good, and I'm not a huge. I'm not going to go off on my VR thing. I will say that it gave me unpleasant memories of the much maligned Xbox 360 game called Star Wars Kinect, which was really bad. Right. I mean, I never played it, but it was just like this, the way that they would try to like have you be a Jedi and stuff with your hands and stuff. It's just, and it never quite seemed to work, and the graphics were bad, and people just mainly were mad that they had to spend $60 on this garbage game. And like you said, having it as a test, because now that these VR headsets are coming out like soon, they're going to need content. And so, if Star Wars wants to throw something up there, I mean, I know that they had the VR thing on Jakku that they had it's different because this one is actually interactive, but that kind of idea of being able to kind of, they could go for years just saying like, oh, here's a walk around Echo Base on Hoth, and you can just walk around it. So I think there's some potential for people. I'm not particularly interested because of some of the side effects I've heard of people getting like throwing up from it because it messes with your equilibrium and stuff like that. And I'm old and I can't see the world like that anymore.
Yeah.
But I think that's probably a good place. We've got it's kind of a short week this week. We're going to what's my point? Sorry. I was like
we'll be back.
Yeah, we'll be back. Next week, hopefully, barring any problems.
We can talk about the chopper-centric episode of Rebels that's airing tonight.
Oh, cool. So if you want to engage with us and ask what the heck's going on with Robert today, he doesn't seem to be able to speak right, you can email us at talkingbirdcast@gmail.com. You can tweet at us at talkingbirdcast on Twitter. We are on Instagram at talkingbirdcast. Tumblr's kind of, I don't think we've done much with the Tumblr this week. It's talkingbird. talkingbirdStarWars.tumblr.com if you want to follow us there. I think that's where we're at everywhere else, right?
It's our online presence. Presences.
Presences.
I don't know.
But that being said,
yeah,
I want to thank you for listening and for Talking Birdcast. I have been Robert Zachary.
And I am still John Llewellyn.
Thanks for listening, and may the Force be with you.
This is the story of an average guy and a beautiful girl.
Hi.
Don't tell me your name. I'll just call you Beauty.
You must be a sensitive person. I bet you're a fan of Ralph McQuarrie's.
I try to be.
And his best friend.
I am Captain Chaos. Been a cop long?
Ralph. And a family doctor.
Police. Come on right here.
And how they all set out one day in an ambulance from New York to California at 150 miles per hour.
California, here we come.
But they aren't the only ones. Because this is the Cannonball Run, America's illegal Grand Prix. And it doesn't matter how you get there. It's who gets there first. Burt Reynolds is the defending champion. On his team, Farrah Fawcett.
Are you one of those volleyballers?
Cannonball.
Dom DeLuise and Jack Elam. And here comes the competition.
Will you hurry up, you little...
Dean Martin.
We happen to be in a race.
Sammy Davis Jr.
You, Shorty. Where'd you get all that jewelry?
Take a left.
Mel Tillis and Terry Bradshaw. Jackie Chan. And Roger Moore as himself.
I'm Roger Moore. Roger Moore.
All of them. Reckless.
We're in kind of a hurry, so if you could just bless it and then we'll be...
Unscrupulous.
Oh, I gotta bless her. Oh, I'm sorry, Father. She's a Zen Buddhist.
Desperate characters. By land, by sea, by air. They'll do anything, drive anything, say anything.
It's hard to understand you.
When I called you, I was doing 140 miles an hour.
And stop at nothing.
Normally I drive right around the speed limit.
We all make mistakes, miss. But 160?
To win the Cannonball Run.
Yeah, we're looking good. Come on, faster!
Cannonball Run. The only movie to get over 200 tickets before it even opens.
That's Cannonball. Perfect.
These are my kids. So
all those Star Wars films.
All the Star Wars films.
They were your kids.
Yeah, well, they are right. You know, I loved them. I created them. I'm very intimately involved in them, and obviously to
and
sell
you
them
sold
off,
them.
I sold them to the white slavers that take these things and
Okay.